your twin! Shut up!
I opened my eyes to absolute darkness. Not the darkness of a room at night, where your eyes adjust and you can make out shapes. This was complete, suffocating blackness that pressed against my eyeballs like a physical thing. I tried to move and immediately hit my head on something hard just inches above my face. Wood. Rough, splintery wood. My hands shot up, palms flat against the barrier, and that's when the panic set in. I was in a box. A small box. I pushed harder, screaming, but the sound just echoed back at me in the confined space, making my ears ring. Then the memories came flooding back. The wine. Olivia had poured us both a glass to celebrate my promotion to CFO of our family's pharmaceutical company. We'd toasted, laughed, and I'd taken a sip. Then another. The room had started spinning, and Olivia's face, my face, identical in every way, had smiled at me with something cold and victorious in her eyes. Finally, she'd whispered as I collapsed. Finally, it's my turn. My name is Isabel Morrison, and my identical twin sister had just buried me alive. I forced myself to breathe slowly, fighting the urge to hyperventilate. Panic would eat up oxygen faster, and I had no idea how much air I had left. I felt around the box, trying to understand my prison. It was a coffin, cheaply made, probably pine. About 6 feet long, 2 feet wide. I could feel dirt pressing against the wood from the outside. How deep was I? 6 feet? 8 feet? Could anyone hear me if I screamed? I screamed anyway. I screamed until my throat was raw, pounding on the lid until my hands bled. But no one came. No one heard. I was alone in the earth, and my twin sister was above ground, living my life. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. Olivia and I were born 3 minutes apart. I came first, which mattered more than anyone outside our family would understand. In our family, birth order determined everything. Our grandfather, Harrison Morrison, had built Morrison Pharmaceuticals from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. His will specified that control of the company would pass to the firstborn child of each generation. I was the firstborn. By 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes meant I was groomed from birth to run the company. I got the best education, the mentorship from our father, the board seat at 25. Olivia got the same education, the same opportunities, but she was always second. Always the spare heir. And she hated me for it. People always assume twins are close, that we had some mystical connection, could read each other's thoughts, felt each other's pain. But Olivia and I had been enemies from the womb. She'd spent our entire lives trying to prove she was better, smarter, more deserving. Every achievement I had, she had to match. Every award I won, she had to win bigger. When I got engaged to Marcus Chen, a brilliant surgeon from one of Atlanta's most prominent families, Olivia had shown up to our engagement party with her own boyfriend, a lawyer she'd been dating for 3 weeks who she claimed was the one. They broke up a month later. Marcus and I had been married for 2 years. We lived in a penthouse in Buckhead, belonged to all the right clubs, attended all the right charity events. On paper, my life was perfect, but I knew Olivia watched everything I did with calculating jealousy. I just never thought she'd actually try to kill me. Lying in the coffin, I tried to think. Olivia wasn't stupid. She was brilliant, actually, which made her dangerous. She'd have planned this carefully. She'd need time to establish herself as me, to convince Marcus and my parents and everyone else that she was Isabel. How long would that take? Days? Weeks? And what was her endgame? Taking over as CFO wouldn't be enough. She'd want everything. The company, Marcus, my entire life. My fingers brushed against something in the coffin with me. My phone. Olivia had left my phone with me. Why would she? Oh, smart. If they found my body, if anyone got suspicious, it would look like I'd been texting, checking emails, living my normal life right up until whatever accident she'd staged. The phone would show location data putting me wherever she'd buried me. It would all point to an accident, not murder. I turned on the phone, squinting at the sudden brightness. 43% battery. No signal, of course. I was underground. But the light showed me something else. A crack in the coffin lid. Small, maybe an inch long, where the cheap wood had split. It wasn't much, but it was something. I'd read somewhere that people buried alive could sometimes escape if the coffin was shallow enough and the dirt wasn't packed too tight. The weight of the earth pressing down would eventually create air pockets. If I could break through the lid, if I could push the dirt aside fast enough before it collapsed on me and suffocated me, I might have a chance. A very small chance. But better than lying here waiting to die. I positioned my phone in my shirt pocket, screen facing out, using its light. Then I started kicking at the crack in the lid with both feet, putting all my strength into each blow. The wood splintered a little more, then a little more. Then, crack, a piece broke off, and dirt started pouring in. I'd expected this, but it was still terrifying. Cold, heavy earth falling on my face, in my mouth, in my eyes. I twisted onto my stomach and started pushing the dirt behind me, packing it into the foot of the coffin. My fingers found the broken edge of the lid and pulled, ripping away another chunk of wood. More dirt fell, faster now. I was going to be buried anyway, just more slowly, more horribly. But I kept digging, scooping dirt behind me, pushing up, up, up. My nails broke. My fingers bled. I couldn't breathe through my nose anymore. It was packed with dirt. I opened my mouth for air and tasted earth. I was going to die here after all. No, I wasn't. I thought about Olivia, about her wearing my clothes, sleeping in my bed with my husband, sitting in my office at the company my family had built. I thought about her winning, about her getting away with murder just because she was born 3 minutes too late. Rage gave me strength I didn't know I had. I punched up through the dirt, clawing, fighting. My lungs burned. Black spots danced in my vision. My hand broke through into air, actual air, and I gasped, sucking in oxygen and dirt and not caring. I dug faster, pulling myself up through the earth like I was being born again. And then I was out. I lay on the ground, somewhere dark and wooded, vomiting dirt and gasping and crying and laughing all at once. I was alive, covered in mud and blood, with broken nails and bruised ribs and lungs that felt like they were full of glass, but alive. I checked my phone. Still no signal. The battery was at 38%. According to the clock, it was 3:47 a.m. on Saturday. I'd been buried for 11 hours. I stood up slowly, every muscle screaming. I had no idea where I was. Trees surrounded me, thick enough that I couldn't see lights from any buildings. Olivia had chosen carefully, remote enough that no one would find me, but accessible enough that she could get here and back without anyone noticing she was gone. I picked a direction and started walking. The sun was coming up when I finally saw a road. A small country highway, 2 lanes, no traffic. I must have been 30 or 40 miles outside Atlanta. I walked along the shoulder, knowing I looked insane, covered in dirt, hair matted with mud, clothes torn, but not caring. A truck finally stopped. The driver, an elderly black man, took one look at me and asked if I needed a hospital. "I need a phone," I croaked. My voice was barely there, my throat destroyed from screaming in the coffin. He let me use his cell phone. I called the one person I knew would believe me, the one person Olivia wouldn't have thought to neutralize, my godmother, Judge Patricia Williams. Patricia had been my mother's best friend since college, and a federal judge for 20 years. She was also the sharpest person I knew. "Isabel?" she answered, confused. It was barely 6 a.m. "Aunt Patricia?" I whispered. "I need help. Olivia tried to kill me." There was a pause. Then, "Where are you?" I described what I could see, mile markers, road signs. Patricia told me to stay put and not to call anyone else. She'd come herself. While I waited, sitting on the guardrail, I thought about what Olivia had planned. She'd need to establish herself as me immediately. She'd probably gone home to Marcus last night, acted normal. She'd go to work on Monday, take meetings as me, make decisions as me. But she'd made mistakes. She had to have made mistakes. We might be identical, but we weren't the same person. There would be things she didn't know, details she'd get wrong. Patricia arrived 45 minutes later in her personal car, not her official vehicle. Smart, she was already thinking about how to handle this. She took one look at me and said, "Hospital first, then we talk." At the ER, Patricia claimed I'd been in a hiking accident and had been trapped under a rock slide. The doctors treated my injuries, severe dehydration, multiple contusions, abraded hands, possible cracked ribs, and asked if I wanted to file a police report about the accident. "Not yet," Patricia said smoothly. "Let's make sure she's stable first." Once I was cleaned up, 4 fluids running, and in a private room, Patricia pulled a chair close to my bed. "Tell me everything," she said. From the beginning, I told her about the wine, about waking up in the coffin, about clawing my way out. Patricia's face remained impassive, but I saw the fury in her eyes. "You're sure it was Olivia?" she asked. "You're absolutely certain?" I saw her face before I passed out. She said, "Finally, it's my turn." "Who else would it be?" Patricia nodded slowly. "Here's the problem. You look like you went through hell, but there's no direct evidence that Olivia did this. No witnesses, no physical evidence linking her to the burial site. If we go to the police now, it's your word against hers. And she has the advantage, she's currently living as you, which means she has access to your resources, your credibility. So what do we do?" I asked. "We play this smart," Patricia said. "Olivia thinks you're dead. That's our advantage. We let her keep thinking that while we build a case against her. We document everything, every mistake she makes, every lie she tells. And when we have enough, we destroy her." "How long will that take?" "As long as it takes to do it right," Patricia said. "Can you stay hidden? Can you resist the urge to confront her?" I thought about it. Every instinct screamed at me to go home, to expose Olivia, to take back my life immediately. But Patricia was right. Rushing in would give Olivia time to cover her tracks, to create an alternative narrative. "I can wait," I said. "But I want to watch her. I want to see what she does with my life." Patricia smiled grimly. "That can be arranged." We moved me to Patricia's lake house, an hour outside Atlanta. She told her staff she was having renovations done and didn't want to be disturbed. The house was isolated, private, perfect for hiding. For the next week, I healed and planned. Patricia brought me everything we needed. A laptop with secure internet, access to security cameras I'd had installed in our penthouse. Olivia didn't know about them. I'd set them up after a break-in scare 6 months ago, and remote access to my work accounts. Watching Olivia through the cameras was surreal. She moved through my apartment, wore my clothes, ate my food. She was careful. I'd give her that. She'd studied me well enough to mimic my routines. She made my coffee the same way, worked out at the same time, even sat in my favorite chair by the window. But she wasn't perfect. On day 3, I watched her go through my closet and pick an outfit I would never wear, a combination that clashed subtly, in a way only someone who really knew fashion would notice. She wore it to what appeared to be a lunch meeting. On day 5, she made my signature pasta dish for Marcus, but she added too much garlic. I'd never made that mistake because I knew Marcus hated too much garlic. On day 7, she went through my desk at home and found a file folder I'd labeled Personal, Private. I watched her open it, read the contents, and her face went pale. The folder contained documentation of every suspicious thing Olivia had done over the years, every lie I'd caught her in, every instance of sabotage, every warning sign that she was becoming dangerous. I'd been documenting her behavior for 5 years, ever since she'd tried to turn my college boyfriend against me by telling him lies about me cheating. I hadn't known then that I was creating evidence for attempted murder, but my paranoia had paid off. Olivia spent an hour reading through my files, and I watched her realize how much I'd known, how carefully I'd been watching her. She put the folder back exactly where she'd found it, but her hands were shaking. "She's scared," I told Patricia, who'd come to watch with me. "She's realizing I wasn't as clueless as she thought." "Good," Patricia said. "Scared people make mistakes." The mistakes came faster after that. On day 10, Olivia met with our parents for Sunday dinner, a tradition I never missed. I watched through their home security feed. Patricia had gotten our father's permission, claiming she needed to check something for a legal case. Olivia was too cheerful, too animated. I was naturally reserved with my parents, careful about showing emotion. Olivia was playing a version of me that didn't exist. My mother noticed. I saw her exchange a look with my father, a slight frown of confusion. But they said nothing. On day 12, Olivia went to work at Morrison Pharmaceuticals. I watched through my office camera as she sat at my desk, went through my files, attended my meetings. She was competent. She'd been training for this role her whole life, after all. But in a meeting with the board, she made a critical error. She proposed a strategy that I'd specifically rejected 3 months ago in a memo to the board. I'd laid out detailed reasons why that approach would fail. Olivia apparently hadn't read that memo carefully enough because she proposed the exact same strategy with enthusiasm. Our board chairman, Robert Chen, Marcus's uncle, interrupted her presentation. "Isabel, didn't you reject this approach back in March? You sent us a detailed analysis explaining why it wouldn't work." I watched Olivia's face on camera. She recovered quickly, but there was a flash of panic. "Yes, but I've reconsidered based on new market data," she said smoothly. "What new market data?" Robert pressed. Olivia couldn't answer. She fumbled through some vague statements about trends and forecasts, but it was clear she didn't have the depth of knowledge to back up the claim. Robert looked concerned. The other board members looked confused. "Perhaps we should table this discussion until you can provide us with the updated analysis," Robert said diplomatically. I watched Olivia nod and gather her materials. Her face flushed. She'd just revealed that she didn't think like I did. Didn't have my strategic mind. The board had noticed. "She's unraveling," I told Patricia that night. "The board is getting suspicious." "Not suspicious enough," Patricia said. "We need something definitive. Something that proves she's not you." That's when I had an idea. When Olivia and I were 12, I'd fallen out of a tree and broken my left arm badly. The bone had healed with a slight abnormality, nothing visible from the outside, but clear on an X-ray. Olivia had never broken that arm. Her X-rays would be completely different. "Medical records," I said. "If we can get her to have her left arm X-rayed, it'll prove she's not me." "How do we make that happen without tipping her off?" Patricia asked. "Leave that to me," I said. "I know exactly how to do it." I still had access to Marcus's email through our shared family account. That night, I sent him a message from an anonymous account, claiming to be a patient at his hospital who'd seen him with Isabel, and noticed she'd been favoring her left arm. Was she okay? Should she see someone about it? Marcus, being a caring husband, would definitely mention it to Olivia. And Olivia, trying to maintain her cover, would probably get it checked out to prove everything was fine. 3 days later, I watched Olivia come home and tell Marcus she'd had her arm X-rayed. "Just to be safe," she said. "Everything's fine. The doctor said it's probably just tension from work stress." But I knew those X-rays were now in the hospital system, and they showed a left arm with no previous fracture. Unlike mine, which clearly showed the old break. "We've got her," I told Patricia. "Those X-rays prove she's not me." "It's a start," Patricia agreed. "But we need more. We need to prove she buried you. We need to find where she did it." I thought back to the night I'd been buried. The wooded area, remote but accessible. Olivia would have needed privacy, but also a location she could reach and return from without being gone too long. "She has a cabin," I said suddenly. "Our family has a hunting cabin in North Georgia, about 40 miles outside the city. Father gave it to her 5 years ago. I never went there. I hate hunting. But Olivia loved it." Patricia pulled up property records. The cabin was registered to Olivia, located on 60 acres of private land. Perfect for burying someone where they'd never be found. "We need to search that property," Patricia said. "But legally, we can't just trespass." "What if we get the police involved?" I asked. "Anonymous tip about suspicious activity? Too risky. If Olivia gets wind that someone's investigating, she'll cover her tracks." Patricia thought for a moment. "We need to catch her in the act of being someone she's not. We need her to make a mistake so big that everyone sees it." The opportunity came sooner than expected. On day 20, the board called an emergency meeting. I watched through the office cameras as they confronted Olivia with inconsistencies they'd noticed, the strategic proposal that contradicted my previous position, several emails she'd sent that didn't match my writing style, meetings she'd scheduled wrong, decisions that seemed out of character. "Isabel, we're concerned," Robert Chen said carefully. "You seem different lately. Are you under stress? Is something going on we should know about?" This was it. Olivia's moment to either come clean or dig herself deeper. She chose deeper. "I appreciate your concern," Olivia said. "But I'm fine. Perhaps I've been trying new approaches, thinking outside my usual patterns." "Isn't that what good leadership is about?" "It's not about leadership style," another board member, Margaret Torres, said gently. "It's about things you should know but don't seem to. Yesterday, you asked me to remind you where we kept the quarterly reports. You organized that filing system yourself. You should know where they are." Olivia's face went tight. "I've had a lot on my mind." "We'd like you to take a medical leave," Robert said. "Just for a few weeks. See a doctor, make sure you're okay. We can handle operations in the meantime." I watched Olivia realize she was losing control. Her eyes darted around the room, calculating. "I'm not taking medical leave," she said firmly. "I'm the CFO of this company. I'm perfectly fine." "Then prove it," Robert said. He slid a document across the table. "This is a contract you negotiated 6 months ago with Biotech Solutions. Can you walk us through the key terms?" I knew that contract inside and out. I'd spent weeks negotiating it, had memorized every clause. Olivia wouldn't know those details. She hadn't been involved. Olivia picked up the document and scanned it. I could see her panicking, trying to buy time. What specifically do you want to know? She asked. The liability cap, Robert said. What did we negotiate it down to, and why? Silence. Olivia stared at the document, but she didn't know the answer. I'd gotten it down to $5 million from their initial request of $20 million by agreeing to shorter payment terms. I'd need to review my notes, Olivia said finally. You shouldn't need notes for something that major, Margaret said quietly. Isabel, what's really going on? That's when Olivia made her fatal mistake. Instead of continuing the charade or admitting she needed help, she got angry. You know what? I'm tired of being questioned like this. I've given this company everything, and the moment I try something different, you act like I'm incompetent. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle a woman with new ideas. The room went silent. I would never have said something like that. It was completely out of character. The board members exchanged glances. I think we need to table this discussion, Robert said carefully. Isabel, take the rest of the day off. We'll reconvene tomorrow. I watched Olivia storm out of the office, and I knew we were close. She was cracking under the pressure. That night, I watched through the apartment cameras as Olivia paced back and forth, talking to herself. They know something's wrong, she muttered. They're suspicious. I need more time. I need to figure out what Isabel knew, how she thought. She stopped suddenly and turned toward the camera, toward me, though she didn't know it. Unless, she said slowly, unless I get rid of the evidence. She grabbed her keys and left the apartment. I immediately called Patricia. She's going somewhere. We need to follow her. Patricia had already arranged for a private investigator to tail Olivia if she went anywhere suspicious. Within minutes, he called back. She's heading north on 400. Looks like she's going to that property you mentioned. She's going to the burial site. I said she's going to make sure there's no evidence. Patricia and I were in her car within 5 minutes, the PI giving us updates on Olivia's location. By the time we reached the cabin property, it was nearly midnight. Olivia's car was parked near a trailhead. We followed on foot, hanging back far enough that she wouldn't hear us. The PI had given us night vision goggles. Patricia had connections that came in very handy. We watched as Olivia made her way through the woods to a clearing. Even in the darkness, I recognized it. This was where I'd clawed my way out of the ground. Olivia was carrying a shovel. She'd come to dig up the coffin and dispose of it somewhere else. We filmed everything as she started digging. Within 20 minutes, she'd uncovered the broken coffin, the one I'd torn my way out of. I watched her face in the infrared light as she realized the coffin was empty. The lid shattered from the inside. No, she whispered. No, no, no. That's impossible. She dropped to her knees, staring at the empty grave in horror. That's when Patricia stepped into the clearing, and I followed. Olivia looked up and saw me standing there, very much alive, and the expression on her face was almost worth the trauma of being buried alive. Hello, Olivia, I said quietly. She scrambled backward, the shovel falling from her hands. You're dead. You're supposed to be dead. Surprise, I said. I'm harder to kill than you thought. Patricia stepped forward, showing her badge. Olivia Morrison, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder. What followed was a blur. Patricia called in the police. She'd arranged for them to be waiting nearby, just in case. Olivia was handcuffed, read her rights, and taken away screaming that it wasn't fair, that I'd had everything, that she deserved her turn. The evidence was overwhelming. The empty grave, the broken coffin, my medical records showing injuries consistent with my story, the security footage of Olivia living as me, the discrepancies the board had noticed, and most damning, the x-rays that proved the woman claiming to be me didn't have the same bone structure I did. Marcus arrived at Patricia's lake house the next morning, having been filled in by Patricia about everything. I watched through the window as he parked, preparing myself for whatever came next. He walked in, saw me sitting on the couch, and just stopped. Isabel? He whispered. It's really me, I said. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. He was crying. Marcus, who never cried, was sobbing into my shoulder. She told me you were staying late at work, he said when he could finally speak, that you had meetings, emergencies, all these reasons why you were different. I noticed things were off, but I thought you were just stressed. I thought, his voice broke. I never imagined this. I never imagined she'd do something like this. Neither did I admitted. Not really. I knew she hated me, but I never thought she'd actually try to murder me. Over the next few weeks, The full extent of Olivia's plan came to light. She'd been planning it for over a year, carefully studying my routines, my mannerisms, my relationships. She'd drugged me with a paralytic that mimicked death, something she'd stolen from Morrison Pharmaceuticals' research division. She'd planned to assume my identity permanently, marry Marcus, run the company, and live my life. What she hadn't planned for was me surviving, or for the fact that despite being identical, we were different people with different knowledge, different skills, different ways of thinking. She'd believed that looking like me would be enough, but it wasn't. The trial was a media sensation. Identical twins, corporate intrigue, attempted murder. It had everything the press loved. Olivia's lawyers tried to claim diminished capacity, that a lifetime of being second had driven her to temporary insanity. But the evidence of premeditation was too strong. The stolen drugs, the prepared burial site, the year of careful planning. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty of attempted murder, fraud, identity theft, and a dozen other charges. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. I sat in the courtroom and watched my sister, my identical twin, the person who shared my DNA, be led away in handcuffs. My parents were there, both of them crying. They'd lost both daughters in a way, one to prison and one to the knowledge that her own sister had tried to kill her. Afterward, my mother approached me carefully. "Isabel, I'm so sorry. We should have seen the signs, should have gotten her help." "You couldn't have known," I said, though part of me wondered if that was true. Had there been signs we'd all ignored? Had Olivia been crying out for help in ways we hadn't recognized? But no, I'd documented her behavior for years. She hadn't been crying for help. She'd been carefully, methodically planning to take what she thought should have been hers. 6 months after Olivia's sentencing, I returned to work at Morrison Pharmaceuticals. The board welcomed me back with relief. They'd seen firsthand how different Olivia was, how poorly she'd handled my responsibilities. Robert Chen joked that they'd known something was wrong when I had started putting too much garlic in recipes. Marcus and I worked through everything in couples therapy. He struggled with guilt for not recognizing that the woman he'd been living with wasn't his wife. I struggled with trusting anyone again, with the knowledge that the person who'd tried to kill me shared my face. "Do you ever look in the mirror and see her?" Marcus asked me one night. "Every day," I admitted. "But I'm learning to see myself again, to separate who I am from who she was." 1 year after the burial, Patricia and I returned to the cabin property. The clearing where Olivia had buried me was overgrown now, nature reclaiming the disturbed earth. We stood there in silence for a long moment. "Do you wish you'd seen it coming?" Patricia asked. "Wish you'd done something to prevent this?" "I saw it coming," I said. "That's why I documented everything, why I kept files on her behavior. I just never thought she'd go this far." "What will you do with the cabin?" Patricia asked. "Your parents want to know if you want to keep it or sell it." I looked around at the woods, at the place where I'd died and been reborn. "Burn it," I said. "Burn the whole thing down. I never want to come back here again." But we didn't burn it. Instead, I had it torn down and the land donated to the state as a nature preserve. A place of death would become a place of life. It felt like the right kind of transformation. My relationship with my parents slowly mended, though it would never be what it was. They visited Olivia in prison once, and she'd refused to see them. She wanted nothing to do with any of us unless she could have everything. My father retired and handed full control of Morrison Pharmaceuticals to me, not because I was firstborn, but because I'd earned it, because I'd survived and come back stronger, because I was, undeniably, the right person for the job. Sometimes late at night, I still dream about the coffin, about the darkness and the dirt and the absolute certainty that I was going to die. But then I remember the feeling of breaking through to the surface, of clawing my way back to life through sheer will. And I remember that Olivia's biggest mistake wasn't in failing to kill me. Her biggest mistake was underestimating me. She thought we were the same person, that looking identical meant being identical. But I'd spent my whole life proving I was my own person, defining myself separately from her. I had strength she never developed, resilience she never built, and determination she never understood. She'd buried me alive thinking it would be my end. Instead, it became her downfall and my rebirth. 5 years later, I received a letter from Olivia. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dear Isabel," it read, "I'm writing this not because I expect forgiveness but because I owe you the truth. I spent our entire lives hating you for being 3 minutes older, for getting everything I thought I deserved. But the truth is, You earned everything you got. You worked harder, thought smarter, and cared more about the company and our family than I ever did. I wanted your life because I thought it would be easier than building my own. I was wrong about everything. I hope you found peace. I'm still searching for mine. Olivia. I read the letter 3 times, trying to find the manipulation, the angle, the hidden message. But it seemed genuine. Broken, remorseful, genuine. I showed it to Marcus. What do you think? I think she's finally realizing what she lost, he said. Not your life, but her own. She spent so much time trying to be you that she never figured out who she was. I wrote back, 1 sentence. I hope you find yourself, Olivia. But we're not sisters anymore. We can't be. I never heard from her again. The transformation Olivia never expected wasn't her transformation into me. It was my transformation from victim to survivor. From someone who'd been buried alive to someone who'd dug herself out and rebuilt her entire world. I'd lost a sister, but I'd gained something more valuable. The absolute certainty of who I was, not defined by birth order or family expectations or someone else's jealousy. Just me, Isabel, survivor, and I would never be buried again.